Welcome to the January 2019 Star Wars Canon Update, the first one of the new year. This month we got 3 new episodes of Star Wars Resistance, 9 new comics, and 1 new book, so let's dive in. Star Wars Resistance released a really great trailer for the remainder of its first season, teasing a lot of conflict with the First Order. But the first 2 episodes back didn't immediately get into any of that. Bebo was predictable and a little slow, focusing on Niku and his new troublemaker of a pet. Dangerous Business did involve the First Order a bit, and foreshadowed some stuff about Starkiller Base, but if you've seen The Force Awakens, we didn't learn anything major. I still say both episodes were worthwhile. We learn more about Niku, but more importantly we get to see how much Kaz has grown since the beginning of the season. The final episode of the month, the Dosa Dilemma, was where things picked up. It was easily the strongest of the 3, continuing to show Kaz improving as a spy. The First Order hires Kragan's pirate crew to kidnap Captain Dosa's daughter, only to double-cross them so they look like the good guys, gaining at least enough favor to get their foot in the door. I think the First Order presence is going to be a lot stronger the rest of the season, and when they're around I tend to think Resistance is at its strongest. If you want to see more about each episode, you can check out my reviews that I'll put in the cards for this video. The book released this month was a junior reader novel called Pirate's Price by Lou Anders. It's part of the Flight of the Falcon line of stories and serves as kind of a prequel to the events of what we'll get to see at Galaxy's Edge later this year. I'm not the biggest Hondo Ohnaka fan, but I've got to admit this story had me very entertained. It's a super easy read, and Anders just nails Hondo's voice. I think it's my favorite version of Hondo we've seen. He's a good mix of funny, conniving, and menacing. If you're interested in why the Falcon is on Batuu and in Hondo's care, this book will tell you, but I've also done a video on that and a review of the book. Also, the audiobook is read by Hondo's voice actor Jim Cummings, so if you're interested in listening to it, you can pick it up for free by following the link in the description or by going to www.audibletrial.com/Star Wars Explained. Moving into comics, Star Wars 59 and 60 both came out this month, continuing the Escape arc. Luke, Han, and Leia are still trapped on Human with the Marcona clan. Leia secretly spends her time plotting an attack against Queen Trios and Shu Torren once they're finally able to leave. Luke grows frustrated just waiting around, but Scar Squadron finally catches up with them. Thane Marcona proves himself to be a good man by leading the stormtroopers astray and ultimately giving his life for the rebels and the rest of the Marcona clan to escape, stranding Creel and his men on Human for months. Scar Squadron was a cool idea, but I really feel like they're being misused. Someone on Reddit said they're like the Team Rocket of Star Wars, and that is both hilarious and accurate. Nothing ever works out for them, and it makes them seem completely incompetent when they're supposed to be elite. They need another win or two before I can take them seriously again. Overall, this arc has been interesting and unique, but I'm ready for it to wrap up next month so we can get to the scourging of Shu Torren, back to some actual war content. Dr. Aphra number 28 was awesome this month. Aphra and 000 still have bombs inside of them, forcing them to work together, and the pairing is tense, exciting, and hilarious. Dr. Evazan makes sure the entire planet knows they're on the run until someone sells them out to the local law enforcement. He also builds a new arm for Ponda Baba. I say this every issue, but this series walks this tightrope of weirdness that I love. Tam Posla is now a reanimated corpse thanks to some Force-sensitive fungus that shouldn't exist in the first place, and yeah, that sounds weird to say, but I love it. That said, the story is more than just a display of wacky fun. This issue especially had a lot to say about loyalty and selfishness. In my opinion, Dr. Aphra is a testament to what Star Wars can do with new characters set mostly outside of the Skywalker saga. The Age of Republic series continued with 3 more issues. The first followed Obi-Wan in his sort of early days of training Anakin Skywalker, at least the earliest we've seen so far. It explores how they both felt in the absence of Qui-Gon, who set everything in motion and then went and died. So Anakin felt like Obi-Wan was stuck with him as his student, and Obi-Wan felt like Anakin was stuck with him as his master. And it's about how they both found some common ground and respect for each other. It was nice, and as a bonus it showed us some of Obi-Wan's training with Qui-Gon, which we'll get to read about in Master and Apprentice later this year. The Jango Fett issue was all about reputation, and it was probably my favorite of the 3 Age of Republic comics this month. We get to see a little bit of Dooku recruiting the bounty hunter to become the clone template, but the more intriguing thing is Jango's attitude about it all. He was happy to take the credits, but he didn't want the clones to be his legacy. That's why he wanted Boba. He wanted to personally train someone to carry on the family name and business. It was a really interesting look at the character and his motivations. The final Age of Republic issue was The Special, which told 3 shorter stories about Mace Windu, Asajj Ventress, and Captain Rex and Jar Jar Binks. The Mace one was my favorite of the bunch, giving us a look at Jedi operations before the Phantom Menace. The Asajj story bridged the gap between her job with Boba Fett and her encounter with Ahsoka in Season 5 of the Clone Wars. And the Rex Jar Jar story gave the Gungans some time to shine, but didn't overdo it. I've really enjoyed the Age of Republic comics so far. I think they've done a great job of exploring some of these characters, showing them in a new light. If you want to hear more about any of them, I have done reviews for every issue so far. Han Solo Imperial Cadet number 3 was the first issue I actually liked out of this series. The previous 2 told a very predictable story. Han enlists and is then disobedient to the Empire, getting in trouble over and over again. This time, he thinks up a scheme to sneak himself and his fellow cadets into a pleasure cruiser for some rest and relaxation, but while he's there, he meets up with an old friend who tells him Kira is still alive. The whole thing brings him closer with his new friends, and gives the comic some actual, unexpected stakes. I'm hopeful the next 2 issues will be more in line with this month's. There's not much to say about the 4th issue of the Solo adaptation. It's just the movie and fast forward this time around, with no extra details that I noticed. The small 3-part Destroyer Down series in Star Wars Adventures wrapped up this month. It was a fine little story about Rey and some other scavengers competing to loot a newly uncovered Star Destroyer that was rumored to be haunted, while also telling the story of how it came to crash in the first place. Star Wars Adventures 17 told 2 stories, the first about Kaz and BB-8 that had some fun banter between the two. The other story was another installment of Flight of the Falcon, which must take place before Pirate's Price. Bazine meets with Lady Proxima, and it turns out she had a run-in with Han after the events of Solo, and he escapes in a similar way, but this time with an actual thermal detonator. Proxima sends Bazine to Jakku to meet with Duquesne, and I was hoping we might actually get to follow the Falcon's path through its owners mentioned in The Force Awakens. Those are all the new stories from the month, and without the Darth Vader comic, Story of the Month has really opened up. I'm gonna go with the Dosa Dilemma. Star Wars Resistance still isn't on the level of the Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels, but I'm encouraged when I see it continue to improve, and the end of the episode really made me excited for the rest of the season. In February, we'll be getting 4 new episodes of Resistance titled The First Order Occupation, The New Trooper, The Core Problem, and The Disappeared. And we'll get 7 new comics, including Age of Republic issues for Anakin and Dooku, Star Wars 61, Dr. Aphra 29, Han Solo Imperial Cadet 4, Solo 5, and another installment of Flight of the Falcon in Star Wars Adventures. But that's it for January. The Canon Update will return on March 1st to cover all those new stories. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel to keep up with Star Wars content as it's released, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.